Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar, we are going to be covering Copilot and especially Copilot Wave 2 and the features that have just been released this month. Today is Tuesday, November 12th. Can't believe it's already mid-November. And to kind of stick with the November theme, we are fostering a culture that's full of gratitude, and that means giving thanks to the technology that makes things easier for us and the companies that help develop these technologies, of course. My name is Jeff Lizerbraum. I'm a pre-sales solutions architect with Managed Solution. And part of our webinar, we are going to be joined by Feli Michaka, one of our premier field engineers and our brand ambassador at Managed Solution. For today's agenda, Feli is going to share his real-world experience with AI and Copilot. And I tell you, this is really going to be very insightful. Feli is on the road. He's at our customer sites quite often, and he sees a lot with what's going on in the world of AI every day. We're then going to be covering some of the cool things that have been developed since Wave 2 was released this month. Now, this will be tailing off of our webinar from October where we covered some of the Wave 2 features, but now these things are really coming to fruition since they were officially released this month. We're then going to be covering the who, what, where, how, and why of Copilot and all those things of, why would you use it? Where does it make sense to use? How much does it cost and all those things. So we'll answer those questions right there. And of course, you might have questions yourself. So if you have any questions during this Zoom session, go ahead and hit the Q&A button. We can answer your questions during the webinar by typing it out, or if you would like to come off of mute and actually ask your question live on the air, feel free to raise your hand and we will take you off of mute towards the end of the session here so we can talk about Copilot, AI, and what your needs might be. Also, keep an eye out for poll questions that will be popping up so we can have further discussions around your thoughts on AI and Copilot in general. With that said, I want to introduce everyone to Feli Michaka, who is one of our brand ambassadors at Managed Solution and also a dedicated field service engineer. And you know what, Feli, you could probably explain what you do a lot better than I can. So if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So Feli Bichaka again, the dedicated field engineer basically is the face of the company. We are out there visiting our customers, giving the best customer experience we can, hand in hand basically. We go there and shake hands with the management of the companies and basically learn about their environments and see how we can do better for them. How can, take the business to the next level and bring in technologies and also handle current technologies for them, and obviously, focus on the Microsoft set of tools.
And are you, I know that some of our field engineers go to various customers, maybe throughout the weeks or the days, perhaps within a day, but then some of our customers are quite large. Are you in the situation where you're working with one customer per week, or is it a couple? Can you tell me a bit about your
the best thing about my job, Jeff, is that I get to see different customers, different environments. So I'm not always doing the same thing every day. So I'm always, in different environments, seeing different customers. And that's one of the things that I enjoy the most, that I'm able to today see one customer and help them with their issues and leave the office with a smile on my face, knowing that I gave them my best. And then tomorrow I'll go back to the next customer and do it all over again, right? And then on top of that, I get to do great events where Managed Solution gets invited, and I go and represent the company and this, whether it be an official, city event or maybe a, Cal State Fullerton that where they want somebody managed to, talk to the students about, the next thing or the next big trend in technology, and even inspire the next generation. So I'm having a lot of fun.
So that's wonderful. So you're helping the community. You're getting young people involved in IT and technology. Can you tell me a little bit of the places where we might be able to watch you or listen to you?
Well, definitely LinkedIn. I'm always posting the community engagement because again, we represent Managed Solution, right? We also do a lot of the take interviews from the media. So the media comes to me for answers on any technology issues. I don't know if you remember the CrowdStrike crisis a couple months back. Well, my phone started ringing around 5 in the morning because they wanted answers, right? At the same time, we'll get the call from, again, Cal State Fullerton, very, very perfect example where Cal State Fullerton is starting a brand new lab on cybersecurity. And Managed Solution has a passion for cybersecurity. We have a passion in cybersecurity, so we get invited to go to those and talk to the students, and we're so happy to do so because I believe that cybersecurity is the foundation of all the technologies, and we need to definitely pay attention to it.
Hmm. One other foundation that I've heard you speak about quite often is this AI economy. Help me define what you mean by AI economy.
So, as we know, 2022, November 2022 to be exact, ChatGPT gets released. OpenAI, with an investment from Microsoft, $13 billion investment, creates this wave of AI tools. 2023, it's basically the year of companies getting started and implementing and investing money in these tools. 2024, speaking of Copilot, and over 2,000, Jeff, over 2,000 AI tools everywhere. I lost count already. But Copilot, meaning it's probably the most relevant to all of us because in the corporate world is driven by Microsoft Office 365 and Copilot for 365. It's an amazing tool. Anyway, and I call it the AI economy because basically it's a market of almost $8 trillion by 2028, according to
Wow.
Bloomberg. And basically, all of the big tech companies in the last 2 years went from $10 trillion to $16 trillion in just 2 years since the release of OpenAI, ChatGPT, and now Microsoft Copilot, and all these tools available for us in the corporate world. And that's why I call this the AI economy.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's a great explanation, and it's really compelling to understand the enormous growth that this has provided, and a lot of the opportunity also for users, for everyone. And so
Exactly.
as we go through our webinars, we're really talking about how something like Copilot with Microsoft 365 is not just for the IT folk. It's not
Correct.
just for finance or the dashboard building and intelligence and all the dashboards and all of that stuff. That's a whole nother world. And
It, and
yes,
it's
there's
and it's
yeah.
also and it's also Jeff also for the executives. So
Oh
check
yeah.
this out. Check this out. 73% of CEOs in the corporate world are the ones that are not only learning these tools, but also bringing the teams with them, their executives, their managers, and say, hey, let's learn these
Yes.
things together. That never happened before, Jeff. I've been in this industry for 22 years, and I remember going to CEOs with IT projects before. You know what they
Yes.
were saying to us? They will say, you know what? Don't bug me. I'm busy right now. Go talk to, the other manager. The
Yeah.
CEOs were not paying attention to a technology trend. Well, how things changed after 2022, November to be exact, because now 73% of CEOs are saying, I want to learn this and I want my team to learn it. So let's get on a lunch and learn, and let's get some session going with Jeff and the team at Managed Solution, and let's learn these things. That's their attitude that I'm seeing these days after this AI boom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. In the old days, before AI was really a thing, it was considered, it's a big expenditure, to,
Yeah.
ask for, additional infrastructure, software, all those components that make businesses work. But now, yeah, they're starting to realize the ROI value
Yeah.
of
They
what
used to,
AI can do.
Jeff, they used to call us the spending department.
Yes.
Now, now they're calling us the making money department.
That's amazing. Well, why don't we explore, some of the things where, businesses can actually be a lot more efficient, get their, whatever job role that you're in, there's always going to be some type of fit where Copilot fits in to be able to, you know,
Right.
allow you to do things much faster, maybe even more intelligently, because now you have kind of someone by your side that's looking at data, putting together tables. And by the way, during this webinar, there's going to be opportunities to see some of the examples of how quickly Copilot can work with your documents in putting together some incredible, tables and charts and whatever the need is. But we'll get into that later. Philly, speaking of, getting things done at work, you're in the field a lot and you see various roles, whether they're office workers, executives, IT staff. And one thing I wanted to point out where Copilot is really useful to understand is everyone can actually go to adoption.microsoft.com. And what's really cool is that there's this thing called the Microsoft Copilot Scenario Library. Now, when organizations are starting to roll out Copilot or thinking about rolling it out, a lot of the questions quickly surface, right?
Yes.
What is AI? What is Copilot? How do I use it? How do I prompt for it? What does it look like? And so one thing I wanted to point out was, there's a scenario for pretty much every functional area and also for almost every industry scenario that you can think of. So I wanted to work with you through a little exercise here and take a look at some of these scenarios that you see day to day. And we're going to break some of these open so we can look at all of the conditions that you might see some areas where this actually might really help one of my customers.
Yeah, in that list, I noticed there's a finance
Yeah.
sector, right? So we definitely have a few of those. We have a few of those customers that are, dedicated to the finance world. I can definitely see a customer. I can think of one customer where every quarter they have this board meeting. It's probably the most important meeting every quarter. So four times a year, the most
Hmm.
important meetings. And imagine this, they have to collect data from the previous 2, 3 months and
Hmm.
put their workbook is literally a PDF of, probably 100 pages plus. So they have to present to their investors. They have to present to obviously the CEO. Imagine grabbing all this data and being able to, instead of doing it in literally month and a half, they start getting ready for this meeting month and a half prior to the date, right? Imagine having to condense that to only a few days where you gather all your numbers, all of the data from this development and that development, and being able to condense the data at a click of a mouse, basically, and now build your tables, build your numbers, your bullet points. As you know, with AI, the more specific you are when you request or those prompts, right?
Yeah.
The better results you're gonna get, and the more productive, and it'll make you look really good in that meeting. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
They were like,
Yeah.
"Where do you get all this stuff?"
That
So I
it,
think
yeah.
that I think that for the finance, the accounting departments that are literally
Well,
geared on Excel all day long,
yeah.
this tool
Let's take a
could be a
Yeah,
good
I
tool.
was gonna mention, why don't we take a look at some of the, like, for example, analyzing business performance. I mean, it's a pretty general statement in finance, but let's take a look at the scenario and let's see, what a day in the life of someone in finance might be able to achieve and what tools of Copilot are available to them. So Well, here's an example right here. Copilot in Excel. Obviously, that is a tool that is really has been up and coming lately.
Yep.
Recently, it
Yep.
actually came out a preview, and now we're in Wave 2, and we're talking about how Python is actually one of the engines that drives a lot of the insights in Excel these days. But here's kind of a day in the life where, okay, let's say in analyzing business performance, the accountant can go into an Excel sheet, aggregate the budget, the data very quickly. There's also going to be some areas that are very much related to Copilot for Finance, where you can analyze budget variances and then going into looking at any kind of discrepancies. But that's great. That's Excel. That's really the core part of their job, right? But where does Copilot also shine? Maybe you can talk about maybe a scenario where you can port this into something like a PowerPoint presentation, right?
And that's also part of the process, right? As you build your data and you collect all these data in Excel with its formulas and whatever, well, maybe you want to also present it to your executives. Well, that's where, PowerPoint comes in, and that's where the Copilot for PowerPoint comes in handy, where you can just import the data and then PowerPoint just creates that PowerPoint for you.
Yeah.
Jeff, I created PowerPoints in the past, and I remember taking hours, like hours building a PowerPoint. Wow. I love Copilot because now it can literally be in seconds and just be able to edit in a few minutes and I'm done.
Yeah, it is amazing. And then finally, the findings can be now distributed out in a communications quite easily, right? So really the path to doing something quick, and this might be maybe from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, we're analyzing data, we're creating that PowerPoint presentation. Sure, there might have to be a little bit of adjustments and tweaks and things like that to make it a little bit more polished. But then, it becomes a communication device to communicate the business performance within the organization. Um, what's another example here? There was one that I found interesting when I was looking at this in the financial aspect. All right. Now, there's a few other tools here that are called out, right? Obviously, the first part of this is very much, crunching the numbers in Excel, reconciling accounts, looking at discrepancies. But now that we're starting to generate reports, what can we do next? So there's this thing called Copilot Studio Agent. And the really cool thing about this is that, let me just kind of take maybe a couple months back. In order to create an intelligent agent, such as like a chatbot, we had to actually go into Copilot Studio and use, some of the maybe even the Azure OpenAI interfaces in order to create an intelligent chatbot. Now, from here, Copilot Studio Agent is actually a button within our document libraries, within perhaps like SharePoint or
Yeah.
OneDrive,
Yeah.
and we can actually create the agent based on the data that it's looking at within that document library, within that Excel document, and we can actually create some custom agents that we can share with people within teams so that now the team can go ahead and prompt it for questions and get the data that they need based on all of the account information that was presented in that document. So it brings the natural language out of what would otherwise be a whole bunch of data, columns, rows, formulas and such things like that.
No,
So
no more cut and pasting, Jeff. No more cut and pasting. It's
yeah,
within the tool, and I think that's why they call it studio because it becomes part of your workspace, part of your studio in a sense, and you don't have to go somewhere else to get the other piece of information. It's all embedded in as part of your application, and it's just right there on the right. You just click on it, and there it is, right? So it's the way and that's why I believe Microsoft CEO says is faster adoption rates with these tools because they're making it so simple for us to use.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Can you
talk about when you go on site to a customer, what other areas that you might find where Copilot might uh, make things a little bit more efficient for their day-to-day work?
I can think of like the sales department. One of our customers, they sell a lot of these golf carts to resorts, and
Mm-hmm.
they're selling really fast. I mean, just today, they were unloading a huge 18-wheeler, full of these things. And every day, every time I'm there, they're always unloading and loading because they're shipping and receiving and shipping and receiving. Imagine keeping track of all those, not just the carts, the parts, the service
Mm-hmm.
department,
Mm-hmm.
the maintenance, which is also part of the sale, right? They buy the support as well, or they sell the support as part of the cart going out to the customer. So imagine keeping all those pieces of information in one database. Wow, I can definitely see sales department benefiting from tools like this in the
Yeah.
future. I really like what Satya says about these tools. He says we think with Copilot and we collaborate with people. So basically, let Copilot do the digging for you, and
Mm-hmm.
then you collaborate with the team. What a
Mm-hmm.
great way to put it, right? Because there have been times, Jeff, where like I'm out on the field. Sometimes I can't, join that particular meeting. Well, I can just go and listen to the recording, and then I can ask Copilot, give me the highlights of this meeting, and give me the times or the tasks that were given to me. And since I wasn't present, I need to be up to date. And boom, there it is, right? So instead of having to listen to the whole an hour conversation meeting, now I can get the task that I need to address right away and then go on and continue my day, right?
Right, right.
I've been wanting to share this when you asked me about the AI economy. I think it's very important to let our not just the customers out there, but also anybody that sits in front of a computer with Microsoft Office and is using these tools already. 90% of the Fortune 500 companies, Jeff, okay, that's a huge number. 90% of the Fortune 500 companies, meaning the Coca-Colas, the Microsofts, the Apples, I mean, the top 500 companies in the world are already using AI tools for their production.
Mm-hmm.
So if the big guys are doing it, why not the small business? Why not the medium-sized business?
Mm-hmm.
Why not us? If they're being productive already, I think that we can apply that concept. And remember, they always diversify, right? The diversification is huge. And I think that as a company, as the CEO, and I believe that's why a lot of the CEOs are basically adopting these tools very fast, just like Satya says, because hey, it makes you more productive. You're able to give time back to your team, your family, and you're able to capitalize on that $8 trillion market by 2028. So I think that when we talk about what's really going on in the corporate world and the impact that it's having at that level, wow, that can only tell me that, hey, Feli, you need to get on board too and start learning these tools and start using them and teach your team how to use them as well and get that license, for God's sake. It's not that
Mm-hmm.
expensive, right? I even heard a lot of executives say, man, those $30 definitely paid off big time. They were kind of hesitant at the beginning, but then later on, within the first week, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing! Well, why did I wait so long?"
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean, I will say that for small businesses, $30 per user per month, that's not a small license at all. It's a fairly big investment when you think about it. Also, the way that Microsoft, just to, be transparent, is that, you know, when you purchase licenses, either through us, like a CSP, or Microsoft, it's the same thing. There's an annual commit.
yes,
So it's $30 a month, but you have to commit to
for a year,
12
yeah,
months of it, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, the thing is that that was the very first concern that I heard, coming out of like last year when Copilot came out. But when we start to realize the time savings
yes,
and being able to, like you said, do things quicker so you can get home, enjoy the family, spend time. I I'll have to say something a little opposite on that. Sometimes being like really efficient causes more work because then you can crank out additional things much quicker, and that might not be a healthy thing either. So you still have to kind of find a balance between the two.
It's the balance, correct? It's the
Yeah,
balance. But at
right.
least now you get to choose because you have this amazing tool that allows you to have options now, right? With before you have no option. You have to stay up to 3 in the morning and make sure that report is ready for
Well,
you in the morning.
yes, and also, one huge benefit is that even though maybe there's a task that's going to take me the same time whether I use Copilot or not. Let's kind of think about a scenario like that. But what Copilot actually does is it gives so much more insight and it allows me to prompt for things I haven't even thought about, asking to put into, say, like a data sheet or a presentation. It really enriches the knowledge. And I will say that just probably within the last few weeks of helping our customers, maybe do a comparative analysis of
Yeah,
a, a migration type or something like that that we're offering, it's really effective and it's such a great communication tool.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, perfect. Well, I mean, you know what? This has been amazing. I'm so glad that you're able to spend your time today. I know you're busy out on the road with our customers and helping them. And I hope your job is going to be a little bit more easy in the future as well.
It's definitely getting easier. Yes, I really seen the benefit. The more time goes by, the more benefit I'm seeing on using these tools. And I can go on and on with samples of when I used it and how it came in handy. But I think the bottom line is that 2024 is basically just only a few days left, right? And I think that 2025, Jeff, is going to be the year of massive adoption of these tools. And I believe that we're going to definitely see more customers and even more non-customers coming to us for help on implementing these tools for them. I can definitely see that because, again, 2025 is the year of massive, massive adoption of these AI tools. And
Yeah.
I'll leave this illustration, Jeff.
Mhm.
So the Federal Aviation Administration, as you know, I love aviation. So
Yes.
a commercial pilot, a commercial captain is not allowed to take off unless his co-pilot is on his right hand side. So I believe that at some point we have to go through the checklist. And if the co-pilot is not part of our checklist, we won't be able to take off, meaning our industry needs that tool. Our job is going to need that tool as part of our checklist for everyday production. And if you don't know how to use these tools, then obviously you're not going to be able to take off.
That was like the most awesome thing I've ever heard about it, and what a great angle to take it, because it's very pertinent. It is a co-pilot.
Yeah, yeah, and
You
I
can't
love
take off.
why
Yeah.
the moment I heard the announcement from Microsoft and they call it Copilot, I'm like, yes.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you, Jeff.
attending this, and we're gonna run into each other very soon, I'm sure.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
Take care. Bye.
I hope you found the conversation I had with Feli quite insightful. What an awesome guy. I wanted to move on and talk about Copilot Wave 2 because it's November, things are happening. November is the time frame when a lot of Copilot Wave 2 items were being released. So, from that standpoint, if you want to see a glimpse of some of the demos I did in our last webinar in October, follow the link there, hit the QR code, and it'll go right to the demonstrations that I did with Copilot Wave 2. Now, during that time, not everything was released. It was just kind of trickling in, but now the wave is hit. So in today's webinar, I am going to show you some demos of Microsoft Planner. If you're doing a lot of project management and you want to utilize Copilot, take a look. There's a lot of really cool things that I'm about to show you there. Copilot agents. Now, I did cover Copilot agents last time, but it was not in my environment. Today it is. I finally got Copilot into my instance of Copilot, and so I'm excited to show you some of those things that I worked on. And finally, PowerPoint. Putting together presentations, it has never been easier now, and I'm going to show you one of the feature called Narrative Builder and how Copilot interacts with it. So let's get the demo started, and I will catch you on the other side. So let's look at Microsoft Planner Premium and the Copilot features that are in it. Now, I'm showing you a Word document that is actually a statement of work that was written, but we need to turn this into a project plan so we can execute upon it. So I'm going into Planner, I'm creating a new plan, and I'm going to choose the Premium option because right now that's the one that contains the Copilot features. Let's go ahead and give it a name. This one is particularly an Exchange migration that we're going to do. And Copilot is right there. So once I create the initial plan, I'm going to have Copilot reference the statement of work that was created so it can create the project plan based off the defined phases and tasks that were developed in the statement of work. So here we go. Let's see what happens after I prompt it accordingly. It'll go ahead. It's going to build the plan. And you can see right away, it's actually building the plan on the side there, so I can kind of get a sneak peek of what it's actually doing. It's going to comb through additional things. It'll think about what tasks to provide. And then before we know it, we have our project plan right there. And if we have timelines defined and other aspects, we can include that too by prompting and creating additional items. We can add additional boards and buckets and other features through Copilot. So really a neat feature that you could do with Planner and really quickly develop that project plan and get things started in an efficient manner. From our last webinar, I gave you a sneak peek into Copilot agents, and it was Wave 2. It just got released this month in November, and now I see it appear in my Copilot capabilities. So let me show you how it looks from my perspective and from my environment here. And within my environment, I have a document library, and it has a bunch of files in here, and these are the files that I want the Copilot agent to be able to prompt on and get the information sources from. So I'll go ahead, I'll create the Copilot agent. That folder name, Copilot demo folder, that's just a default. I'll live with that for now. We can always rename it later, but I'm going to give it a try. So in that right side, you're going to see the ability to start prompting. Let's see what happens when we ask it a question. For example, I'm going to ask it to list the 5 steps in order to put together a good Copilot learning program. So here we go. It's giving me the answer. And what I'm really looking for are those citations. Where is it pulling the information from? And you can see that it's got that little number 1 right there where you can see how it citated that information. Well, moving on, let's see what else we can do here. So now that I've created it, let's go ahead and edit and make some modifications. Now by default, it has the name, it has a lot of the settings, and again, it has that little test bed where I can prompt it with another question just to make sure it's getting the information I want properly, and sure enough, it is. It's giving me the citations and everything that I want. The sources, I could see the sources that it's pulling from, which is what I would expect. It's all the folders that I selected there. Now the fun part here is really the behavior. So with the behavior of it, right now it defaulted to a formal tone. So that's in the instructions. How do you want it to behave? I'm going to change it to make it a little bit more funny and playful. And let's see what happens. I'm going to save it. And what I'll do is I'm going to give it the same exact prompt that I just gave it. So I'm actually going to go in and copy that previous prompt. Let me copy and paste that over there. Now let's see if it does something a little bit different this time. So as you can see, it says, the quest for Copilot champions. It's like assembling your own superhero squad to ensure a successful adoption program. So right away, I could tell it's changed its mood. It's a little bit more fun. It's a little more playful. When I look at it closer, it's referencing some superheroes and the Avengers and things like that. So it's adding a nice little touch to it, and you can ask it to be formal. If you want it to be formal, you can have it be playful. You can give it pretty much any type of behavior that you want that would be appropriate for the use case. Coming soon, we can also expand this into Copilot Studio itself to make some really neat modifications. It's just not there yet, but that's coming. Now, the last part of this is that, hey, I'm happy with it. You know what? I want to share it out to other users in the environment. So let me go ahead and just like you're sharing any kind of document, you can go ahead and share the Copilot agent out. I'm going to copy the link, and I could provide that link in, say, like a Teams chat for other users to be able to access it. And when they access it, there's going to be a few different ways that are really kind of coming here, but right now, when they launch right into the chatbot itself. They can ask questions, they can get the answers based on the topic of what that agent is. So pretty neat stuff from that standpoint right there. PowerPoint with Copilot has a feature called Narrative Builder. Now, Narrative Builder was a feature that was in PowerPoint quite some time ago. Kind of went away, I think, for a while, but now it's resurfaced back as Narrative Builder with Copilot. So let's take a look at what we can do here. So here's an example. I have a new presentation I want to create, and I have some ideas in my mind, and I want Copilot to help me. So first off, I'm just going to do the first thing and choose a template that I like. So let's add a little bit of color to this. I'll go ahead and create this purplish blue template here. Now when I start, Copilot is going to pop up and it's going to say, hey, you can create a presentation about ... And I'm going to fill in those ... and tell you what, let's put a subject matter about something fun. Now, this isn't really fun, but let's talk about capital expenditures versus operational expenditures in IT budgets and what is really the trend happening in 2024 and 2025 and beyond. So that's going to be the subject matter that I'm going to be presenting on. And so I'm putting in, first of all, the narrative right there at the top. Now, this is my favorite part because what it's doing, it's putting together the ideas that Copilot brought to the surface, and it's putting it in an order it thinks it makes sense, right? You know what? I don't really like the order that it did, so we can go ahead and we can move some of those topics a little bit down. We can move some other topics maybe a little bit up a notch there. So that's one of the cool things is that you could do some reordering as you need. Now another thing, you can go ahead and insert some other topics within that narrative. So let's go ahead and add another topic, something in IT and spend usually surrounds ourselves with security, on premises versus cloud architecture, what are the trends and, how are they spending their money in terms of security. So I'm going to insert that topic there and it'll build out the subject matter. Now, before we generate the slides, I want to do one more thing here. What I'd like to do is I have an article that I saw that I really liked, and I would like it to reference that white paper or that article that I have it stored on SharePoint. So with this, we can go ahead and insert a new topic, and I'm going to have it reference a link to my SharePoint site, and it's going to generate the ideas. And I want to make sure it's doing the right thing, so it's citating the actual document that I gave it,
and it put together the topics based on that documentation. So now let's go ahead and generate it, and let's see what the results are. Now I did speed this up because sometimes it takes some time to build the slides according to how much content you intend to have. But in this case, I'll keep it. Kind of looks pretty cool to me from 10,000 foot level, but let's go ahead and launch the presentation. And here we go. Kind of gives me the templatized, fashion of what I chose. I might want to change that later. But in terms of the subject and the content in here, it captured everything that I really wanted as far as being able to present something effectively. A lot of subject matter was really being explored here. And so I'm pretty satisfied with how it came out. So that's Copilot Narrative Builder in action. So now that you saw what Copilot Wave 2 is bringing us, let's move into a lightning round here. And the lightning round is going to be the who, what, when, where, why, and how of Copilot. So we're going to move a little bit quickly through this, but this really is meant to summarize Copilot as a whole on all of these areas. So let's start out. Let's start out with who uses Copilot. Now, really, anyone can use Copilot, right? Whether you're sitting in marketing, sales, customer service, finance, data, and IT pros, anything like that, anyone can use Copilot. It's really for everyone, and it's really meant to make everyone's job a lot more efficient. The next thing is that what is Copilot actually? Now, there has been a lot of questions lately on it, and really, if I could give the simplest answer without having to go into too much technical detail, is that Copilot acts upon your Microsoft 365 applications. It also acts on what's known as Microsoft Graph. Microsoft Graph, in other words, is simply your context, your content, your email, files, meetings, chats, everything within your organization. That's what Microsoft Graph is. But Copilot also goes outside to Azure OpenAI services, much like ChatGPT is based on, and it's going to use the AI large language models. Large language models provide much more context, much more semantics, much more human nature and elements into the AI responses. And Copilot goes out to Graph again, but as you can tell, it's gathering all that information within your Microsoft 365 boundaries. Now, there are some other areas that Copilot works as well. Copilot can also work in areas such as connectors. A connector from Graph will connect to some other applications in order to expand all of the information, not just within email files, meetings, and chats, but it'll also look at things like Salesforce data, maybe some Google data, and things like that. Plugins, they're a little bit different. They kind of work in parallel with Copilot, but they go directly to those connectors. So a plugin is a little bit different because it's going to use any of the AI elements that are already built in into these other third-party solutions. But all in all, everything is within your organization, your context. Everything is protected via secure links and secure communications. And Microsoft puts a lot of effort ensuring that your enterprise data is protected. Now, from that standpoint, someone might ask, when should I use Copilot? And there are a lot of examples. Earlier in the webinar, I showed you where you can go to the scenarios, Copilot scenarios. This is just one of them. This takes a user through the day in the life of, Cassandra, who's an analyst, and she is going through, from 8 o'clock in the morning all the way till 4 p.m. using Copilot in different scenarios. And so these are really good case points. Again, we'll provide the links of where you can pull out some scenarios for your particular role. Maybe you have a particular role in the organization that you could use Copilot tools in very specific ways and manners. And I'm sure there's going to be something that fits very close.
Where does Copilot work best? Now, to answer this question, Copilot, when you're using the free version, it's using the web only. So it does look out to the internet for sources in order to capture data. Now, using free Copilot, you can also upload documents to it. That documentation and any kind of content is protected if you're using your organizational ID, your organizational Microsoft 365 login. Now, when you're using the paid version of Copilot, you're going to see a toggle. It's going to show web and work. When you toggle it to work, all of the sources are really pointing to what's known as that Microsoft graph. It's going to look towards your content and it's going to learn on that only within your organization. Again, this is protected. It doesn't use your intellectual property or any of your documents in order to learn for generative AI in general. So, but where does it work best? It's really going to depend. If you're looking to find out, like, hey, what did I do in the first half of the day here, you can ask Copilot to catch you up on things. If you want to look at certain research items, that's when the web might come in handy, and you can use Copilot for that particular use case. So it definitely depends on work or web, and there is a little bit of combination. When you're using work, it does utilize the web to also gather resources, so it enriches the data depending on what you're gathering there. The next question is, why should I use Copilot? Well, I think the answer really lies in the efficiency that it provides. Now, when Copilot was released last year, Microsoft did some early adoption studies, and they found that, you know what, it seems like some organizations are starting to save some time and efficiencies by using Copilot. 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours of savings, up to 2.5 hours of savings. You can kind of see how the ROI, the return on investment percentage, really increases, the more hours that are saved. But they didn't stop there. They actually took that study a little bit further and they looked at it closely at the results after a lot of time went by, and they found that users were actually saving, on average, about 10 hours per month. That is huge. When you look at the ROI percentage, I don't even know if I could calculate it, but it was several 100% much more in efficiencies. So what does that mean? It allows you to do a lot of work in a less amount of time. It allows you to create things in a less amount of time. Maybe that results in having you save time and get home on time and spend time with the family and personal lives and things like that. Or in my case, sometimes it makes me work harder. So it all kind of depends there. But it really does increase on the ability to be more efficient, to put things together a lot quicker. And hopefully some of those demos kind of showed you that. From a standpoint of how can I learn more? So the best bet is to go to this copilot.cloud.microsoft. That's really your Copilot lab right there. And when you launch the lab, you're going to see a lot of ideas and a lot of prompts that you can utilize in order to make Copilot your own and make it very effective. So I definitely encourage you to go to this website, because here's an example. Prompts to try. If you wanted to go ahead and get a PowerPoint usage, you want to create something, and maybe your job is in human resources, well, you can go ahead and search for those types of scenarios, and you can look at some of the prompts that are really going to help you from that perspective. Speaking of prompting, I wanted to leave you with this, the art of prompting. Now, which prompt do you think would give you a better result here? So here is a case of prompt one where, we're writing a blog post about sustainable practices in agriculture. Well, great. You give it a prompt, you're definitely going to get a response. But what's missing here? So let's look at another example. This second example actually shows a lot more ingredients that were put into the prompt. And as a result, it's going to understand what the source is and what you expect to get out of it, right? And so as you look at the difference as you type in the prompts, you're going to see a huge difference. And here's an example of something where it was reworded, reordered in a different way. Some of the ingredients were constructed, a little bit differently, but you can see we're getting information from one way of prompting, but a better way of prompting is going to give us a lot more information and a lot more context. And one last quick tip here is that Copilot is built to take action. So you can tell Copilot what you want and what you don't want, right? So an example is, I'm going to write an overview of how Copilot can help improve productivity, generate 3 bullet points. So I want you to focus on that orange text there. That is the expectation. That's what you want Copilot to do. However, if you have a very vast, broad, topic that you want Copilot to give you some output back, well, maybe there's some things that you want to exclude out of your prompt. So here's an example of don't include any Disney attractions in my 7-day trip across Japan and Tokyo and Kyoto. So that is a prime example of telling Copilot to kind of filter out some things and some information if you don't want to see it. So that's really kind of it from a nutshell. Copilot prompting definitely has an art of doing it and doing it effectively, and hopefully this helps. And speaking of helping out, I wanted to call out some of the programs that we provide and workshops that we provide that will help you out even further. We here at Managed Solution have a Microsoft Copilot Adoption Roadmap program that you could sign up for. All in all, it is a 14-day program. However, you don't need to sign up for all of it. Copilot is so vast that we feel that 14 days will cover really the majority of the things that you might need, including not only just general end user prompting and adoption tactics to use it in the Microsoft 365 apps, but you might want to go further and build things like automation and chatbots and look at all of the other capabilities under the hood of Copilot. So reach out to us. There's a QR code there that you can take a snapshot of. It goes right to this offer here. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions. One of us here at Managed Solution will be happy to answer them. And with that said, we are going to move into our Q&A session. So let's get started there.